They swore on everything they knew that you would fail. But the universe does not bow to the weak. It bends to the unshakable. They mocked you, laughed in your face, spat on your dreams, and tossed your vision into the fire, hoping it would burn away to nothing. "It's impossible," they said. "You're wasting your time." They patted themselves on the back, convinced their small-minded certainty had crushed you. But now, their arrogance has turned to fear, their doubt has turned to silence, and the only thing burning is their pride, because you just did the impossible. This message is not for them, it is for you, the ones who never wavered, the ones who saw beyond the illusion, the ones who refused to let the blind lead them into darkness. If you're one of them, if you have ever been doubted, mocked, or cast aside for believing in something greater, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a number 77 in the comment below. Every action pushes this message further, signals to the algorithm that more chosen ones need to hear it, need to rise, need to know they were never alone. This is bigger than content. This is a movement. They called you insane because their minds were too small to grasp your vision. They called your dreams impossible because their spirits were too weak to chase their own. Every time you spoke, their laughter rang through the air like chains rattling in a prison. They wanted you to believe in limits, because if you broke free, they would have to face the fact that they had shackled themselves. So they scoffed, they ridiculed, they tried to break you. But what they never realized was this. Every doubt they threw at you was fuel. Every insult was a hammer that only sharpened your blade. Every attempt to silence you only made your voice louder. Now, the tables have turned. The same mouths that called you delusional now whisper in uncertainty. The same eyes that rolled at your words now stare in disbelief. You did not rise because of their belief. You rose in spite of their doubt. And that is why they fear you. Because you didn't just succeed, you did it without them. You proved them irrelevant. You proved them wrong. And nothing haunts the weak more than realizing the person they mocked is now untouchable. They will pretend they never doubted you. They will act as if they always knew, as if they always supported you. But you remember the smirks, the dismissive glances, the way they spoke your name with mockery laced in their voices. You remember every time they tried to make you feel small. But look at you now. You have shattered their illusions. You have broken through the walls they swore you could never climb. They spent their lives bowing to limitations. You just ripped the very concept of impossible out of existence. And now, the presence of a chosen one haunts them. When you walk into a room, the air shifts. Their laughter dies in their throats. Their certainty crumbles under the weight of your existence. They can't explain it, but they feel it. They feel the power of someone who never surrendered, someone who stood firm against every storm, someone who doesn't just walk through fire, someone who is the fire. And that fire will never be extinguished. This is your moment. You owe them nothing, not explanations, not apologies, not even the satisfaction of acknowledging their regret. Let them tremble in silence. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own disbelief. They spent their days laughing at you. Now they spend their nights lying awake, haunted by the realization that you were always right. They said it was impossible. You just proved them all wrong. And now, let's break it down step by step. And trust me, if you are a true chosen one, you'll feel the pull to stay till the very end. This isn't just another message. This is your confirmation. The proof that everything they doubted, everything they laughed at, everything they swore could never happen, is now unfolding before their very eyes. Stay with me, because by the time we're done, you won't just see the truth, you'll own it. Let's begin. Number 1. The mockery before the miracle. First, they mock you, then they fight you, then they watch in fear as you prove them wrong. They laughed in your face, they sneered behind your back. They looked at you like you were a joke, like your vision was nothing more than a delusion of grandeur. They called it fantasy, they called it foolish. Every time you opened your mouth, their eyes rolled before you even finished your sentence. Every time you spoke about your dreams, they dismissed it as paranoia, as wishful thinking, as the ramblings of someone who didn't understand how the real world works. But now, their laughter has died in their throats, because now they see it. The very thing they mocked is standing right in front of them. The dream they swore was impossible has become undeniable reality. And the person they doubted, the one they ridiculed, rejected, and tried to break, is the one they now watch in stunned silence. But let's get one thing clear. They never doubted you because they truly thought you were wrong. They doubted you because deep down, your courage exposed their own cowardice. Every word you spoke, every move you made was a reflection of the dreams they had abandoned long ago. You didn't just challenge their logic, you threatened their entire existence. Because if you succeeded, then that meant they had no excuse. That meant they had wasted years convincing themselves that greatness wasn't possible. This is why history repeats itself. Look at the legends, the revolutionaries, the ones who changed the world. Elon Musk was laughed at when he said he would build reusable rockets. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. Albert Einstein was labeled slow, incapable, even useless in school. Every single one of them was mocked before they made history. The world has a habit of spitting in the face of visionaries, until those visionaries reshape reality itself. And now, chosen one, you are experiencing the same thing, because you are one of them. If you weren't, they wouldn't have reacted so strongly. Think about it. Why do they care so much about tearing you down? Why do they put so much effort into doubting you, belittling you, trying to make you feel small? If you were truly insignificant, they wouldn't have even noticed you. They mock because they fear. They laugh because they know that if you are right, then their entire belief system is a lie. And now they are scrambling. Now they are trying to pretend they never doubted you. They are rewriting history, acting as if they always believed in you. But you remember the way they looked at you like you were insane. You remember the words, the smirks, the dismissive tones. You remember every single moment they tried to break your spirit. And now, every single one of those moments has turned into fuel. But here's where the power truly lies. You never needed their belief. You never needed their validation. The truth is, their doubt was a gift. Their rejection was your armor. Their mockery was the fire that forged you into something they can no longer deny. Every great mind, every leader, every chosen one walks this path. It is not the easy road, but it is the only road to destiny. So now, ask yourself, what will you do with this moment? Will you look back and waste your energy trying to prove something to them? Will you let their regret become your distraction? Or will you rise even higher, knowing that the best revenge is living a life they swore you could never have? Because here's the truth, you were never here to convince them. You were never here to win their approval. Your path was never meant to be understood by those who chose to live in the comfort of mediocrity. You were meant to rise, to lead, to do what they said was impossible. And now, as they sit in stunned silence, watching everything they doubted become real, watching you step into the power they tried to crush, they know. They may never admit it, but deep down, they know they were wrong. and you were always right. So let them sit in their regret. Let them struggle with their own disbelief. You don't owe them anything, not an explanation, not an apology, not even a second glance, because their laughter is dead, their arrogance is dust, and you are just getting started. Number 2, the lies they clung to. The chains they tried to put on you were never real. They were just illusions built by the weak, shattered the moment you decided to rise. From the moment you first dared to dream, they tried to lock you in a cage built from their own fears. Stay in your lane. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. You'll just end up disappointed. They didn't just doubt you, they actively worked to convince you that your own potential was a fantasy. Not because they truly believed in limitations, but because they needed you to believe in them. Their entire world was built on lies. Lies that kept them small, kept them afraid, kept them trapped in the cycle of mediocrity. And you were the proof that their excuses were nothing more than cowardice. That's why they hated you. That's why they fought so hard to make you question yourself. Because if you broke free, it meant they had chosen their own chains. Society programs people to think within boxes. From birth, they are conditioned to be obedient, to follow, to never question, to accept the invisible limits placed around them. They were taught that security is more important than freedom, that comfort is better than greatness, that dreaming too big is a dangerous game. But you were never built to be caged. They threw everything at you, fear, doubt, rejection, hoping that one of their weapons would break you. But what they never understood was that their doubt was just another stepping stone for you to rise. Their disbelief only made you stronger, because while they were busy protecting their walls, you were busy learning how to tear them down. And now, the walls they swore would hold you back are nothing but rubble at your feet. Look at the greats. Steve Jobs was told he wasn't fit to run Apple. Muhammad Ali was mocked for calling himself the greatest before he even won a title. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before the world knew her name. Every single one of them was surrounded by people who clung to the same lies. Lies that were supposed to keep them ordinary. But instead, they shattered those illusions and became legends. And you are walking the same path. They wanted you to doubt yourself, to believe that you were no different than them. Who do you think you are? What makes you so special? They tried to make you feel crazy for believing in yourself, for reaching beyond what they told you was possible. But the truth? You saw what they couldn't. You knew what they refused to admit. That the only limits in this world are the ones weak minds choose to accept. And now they are watching in shock as you move beyond the very boundaries they tried to trap you inside. They spent their lives waiting for permission, waiting for someone to tell them it was okay to be great. You didn't wait. You didn't ask. You took what was yours. You refused to live inside their illusion. You refused to bow to the lies that enslaved them. And that is what haunts them now. Because you were proof that their chains were never real. That the life they settled for was never the only option. They can no longer tell themselves that success is for the lucky. That only special people get to rise. Because you were right there in front of them, one of them, and you chose to break free. So now they scramble. They try to explain it away. You got lucky. You had an advantage. It was just a coincidence. Anything to avoid admitting the truth. That they could have done it too. That they wasted years believing in walls that never existed. That they doubted you, not because you were wrong, but because your strength made them confront their own weakness. And That is why you owe them nothing, not an apology, not an explanation, not even a glance back at the wreckage of their illusions. Because the moment you realized that their limits were never real, you became unstoppable. Number 3, the weight of their words. A weak mind lets words become chains. A strong mind turns them into fire. They wanted to break you. That was always the plan. Their words weren't just opinions. They were weapons, sharpened with intention, aimed at your spirit, with the hope that one day you'd collapse under their weight. You'll never make it. You're wasting your time. You're living in a fantasy. Every word they spoke was designed to plant doubt in your mind, to make you second-guess the fire that burned inside you. But they made a fatal mistake, because words can either be chains or they can be fuel. And you chose fire. Instead of breaking, you let their insults push you forward. Instead of surrendering, you let their doubt become your power. Every time they said you couldn't, you whispered back, "Watch me." Every time they tried to bury you, you reminded them, you are the seed that grows through concrete. What they don't understand, what they will never understand, is that the greatest minds, the most unstoppable forces in history, were hardened by doubt. Every legend walked through the same fire you did. Michael Jordan was told he wasn't good enough for his high school basketball team. Walt Disney was fired from his first job for lacking imagination. Thomas Edison was called too stupid to learn by his teachers. Had they listened? Had they accepted the weight of those words? They would have been nothing more than forgotten names in history. But they didn't, and neither did you. You refused to carry their doubt as your burden. Instead, you used it to fuel your rise. Because the truth is, they never actually doubted you. Not really. Their words weren't about you, they were about them. They needed you to fail, not because you were wrong, but because if you proved them wrong, then they had no excuse for staying small. That's why they came at you so hard. That's why their words were so vicious. They wanted you to believe that your dreams were foolish, that you were wasting your time, because if you believed it, you would stay where they were. And that's all they ever wanted, to keep you at their level so they wouldn't have to face the fact that they never even tried. But instead of dragging you down, their doubt made you sharper, stronger, unstoppable. Every insult became a reason to push harder. Every dismissal became proof that you were on the right path. And now they are choking on their own words, because you didn't just survive their doubt, you thrived in spite of it. Now they watch in silence, realizing too late that every word they spoke was just another brick in the empire you were building. The same people who once laughed at you, the ones who tried to kill your fire, are now pretending they never doubted you at all. But you remember the moments when their words cut deep, when their laughter rang in your ears, when their disbelief tried to shake your foundation. But instead of folding, you stood taller, because the chosen do not bow to the opinions of the weak. And now they have no choice but to face reality. They can't laugh anymore because the proof is right in front of them. They can't mock because their own words have turned to dust. But here's the best part. You don't need their validation now. You never did. You didn't rise because they believed in you. You rose because you believed in yourself, because you understood a secret they never could. Greatness is built on rejection. Power is forged in doubt. And the weight of their words was never a burden. It was your weapon. Let them sit in their silence. Let them wrestle with the truth. They tried to break you, and instead, they built something indestructible. And now, they have to live with the fact that they were wrong. Number 4, the silent shift. The ones who mocked you the loudest now whisper the quietest. Silence is the sound of their regret. Yesterday their voices filled the air, loud, arrogant, unshaken in their disbelief. They called you foolish. They dismissed your vision like it was nothing more than a child's fantasy. They took pride in tearing you down, convincing themselves that their laughter was proof of their superiority. But today they have nothing to say. Their silence is deafening. No more snide remarks, no more sarcastic smirks, no more mocking tones, just silence. Because for the first time, they are being forced to sit with a truth they never wanted to face. You did what they swore was impossible. They can't explain it. They can't understand how you pulled it off. They can't wrap their minds around the fact that the very thing they dismissed as delusion is now unfolding right in front of them. And that terrifies them, because now they are questioning everything. How did this happen? How did they miss it? How did the person they doubted so confidently turn out to be the one who was right? And the worst part? You didn't even argue with them. You didn't waste your energy trying to convince them. You didn't plead for their belief. You didn't fight for their approval. You let them talk, let them doubt, let them laugh, and you kept moving forward. That's what eats at them the most. Because now they realize your silence was never weakness, it was power. You knew something they didn't. You had a vision they couldn't see. And while they wasted their breath trying to break you, you were busy proving them wrong. This is the moment they feared. The moment when the weight of their own ignorance comes crashing down on them. The moment when they realize that every doubt they threw at you was just another brick in the foundation of your success. The moment when their confidence dissolves into uncertainty and their laughter dies in their throats. Because now they know they were never laughing at your dreams. They were laughing at their own inability to dream. History has seen this same shift time and time again. Nikola Tesla was called a madman until his genius became the backbone of modern technology. The Wright brothers were ridiculed for thinking man could fly until the first plane lifted off the ground. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before lighting up the world. First, the world laughs. Then, the world watches. Then, the world follows. And you are standing in the moment where the laughter has turned to silence. But don't mistake their quiet for respect. It isn't admiration that's keeping them speechless. It's fear. Because now they don't know what to do with you. They built their lives around the belief that people like you don't succeed, that visionaries are just dreamers, that those who think differently are destined to fail. But now you are standing here, undeniable proof that everything they believed was a lie. And nothing shakes the weak more than realizing the foundation they stood on was never solid to begin with. So let them sit in their silence. Let them feel the weight of their own disbelief pressing down on them. Let them struggle to find the words to justify why they doubted you. Because the truth is, they have no justification. They had no reason to doubt you, no reason to mock you, no reason to reject your vision. The only thing they ever had was fear. Fear that you would prove them wrong. Fear that you would expose their own lack of courage. Fear that if you made it, they would have to accept that they were the only thing standing in their own way. And now, that fear is their burden to carry, not yours. You don't need to say, "I told you so." You don't need their apologies. You don't need anything from them. Because their disbelief was never your obstacle. It was just part of your journey. And now, as they sit in stunned silence, unable to reconcile the truth staring them in the face, you stand taller than ever. Yesterday they laughed. Today they watch. Tomorrow they will pretend they always believed in you. But you will never forget. Number 5. They never wanted you to win. They didn't just doubt you, they prayed for your failure. because your success is a mirror that forces them to see what they could have been, but were too afraid to become. Let's strip away the illusions. Let's expose the truth they don't want to admit. They never just doubted you. They weren't just skeptical. No, deep down, they wanted you to fail. They needed you to fall. They needed you to break. They needed to be right about you, not because they cared about truth, but because if you won, it would shine a brutal light on their own mediocrity. They spent years crafting excuses for themselves. They told themselves that success was only for the lucky, for the gifted, for the privileged. They convinced themselves that greatness was a myth, that no one can truly escape the life they were given. They turned their own weakness into a belief system, one that let them stay small without guilt. And then you came along. You, with your relentless drive. You, with your refusal to accept the limits they swallowed so easily. You, with your dreams that made them uncomfortable. Because if you were right, if you actually made it happen, then everything they told themselves was a lie. And that terrified them. So they didn't just doubt you, they actively rooted against you. Every failure you experienced was a victory for them. Every struggle, every setback, every moment you felt lost, they celebrated in silence. They pretended to be indifferent, but deep down, every time you hit a wall, they felt a twisted sense of relief. Because if you failed, it meant they were safe. It meant they never had to question themselves. It meant they could go on believing that success was just a fantasy. But now they are choking on their own disbelief. Now they are watching you rise, powerless to stop it. Now they have to face the one thing they tried to avoid at all costs, the realization that you were always right. And the best part, you didn't just succeed, you did it without them. They weren't a stepping stone. They weren't part of your support system. In fact, they did everything in their power to derail you. And yet, despite all of it, despite their doubt, despite their mockery, despite their secret prayers for your downfall, you still made it. And that is why they hate you even more now. Because if there's one thing worse than watching someone succeed, it's watching someone succeed after you did everything in your power to break them. They will act confused now. They will pretend they don't know how you did it. But don't be fooled. They always knew you had the potential. They saw your fire, your vision, your hunger. They saw something in you that they lacked. And instead of supporting you, they tried to extinguish it. Because if they couldn't have greatness, then why should you? But here's the truth they will never say out loud. They wish they were you. They wish they had your courage. They wish they had your resilience. They wish they had the strength to do what you did. But instead of learning from you, instead of taking inspiration from your path, they chose to be bitter. They chose resentment. They chose to be enemies of the very thing they secretly desired. And now, they are drowning in their own regret. Because there is no pain greater than realizing you had the same 24 hours, the same opportunities, the same potential as someone else. But while they rose, you stood still. And that's exactly what they are feeling right now. Not just regret, not just shame, but the deep, soul-crushing weight of knowing that they could have been more, but they chose not to be. And you owe them nothing, not an explanation, not an apology, not a place at your table. They made their choice, they placed their bets, and they lost. Let them sit in their discomfort. Let them stew in their own bitterness. Let them watch from the sidelines as you continue to rise. Because now, you are unstoppable. Number 6. The same mouths that mocked you now stay silent. The loudest doubters always become the quietest when faced with undeniable truth. Do you remember how much they had to say? The endless smirks, the arrogant laughter, the dismissive tone in their voices every time you spoke about your dreams. That will never happen. You're wasting your time. Be realistic. They threw those words at you like stones, convinced that their doubt would crush you. But now, silence. The same people who couldn't keep your name out of their mouths, who found joy in ridiculing you, who spoke as if they were the ultimate authority on what was possible and what wasn't, they don't know what to say anymore. Their laughter has dried up. Their certainty has shattered. The weight of their own disbelief is pressing down on them, and they are choking on the reality that they were wrong. And they know it. You see it in the way they avoid eye contact, in the way they shift uncomfortably when your name is mentioned. Some of them will act like they never doubted you, like they were always on your side. Others will stay quiet, hoping you don't remember their mockery. But you do. You remember every word, every insult, every time they tried to make you feel like a fool. And now that mockery has turned into regret, because reality has exposed them. They were never the wise ones. They were never the logical ones. They were just fearful minds trying to project their own limitations onto you. And now that you've broken free, now that you've done what they swore was impossible, they are left scrambling to reconcile their past words with the undeniable truth standing in front of them. And that is why they stay silent. Because admitting they were wrong means admitting they lived in ignorance. It means admitting that they spent years clinging to false beliefs, rejecting truth, and laughing at the very thing they should have learned from. And weak people would rather swallow their pride in silence than face the fact that they were the fools all along. But here's the thing. You never needed their belief. You never needed their support. And you sure as hell don't need their apology now. Let them sit in their silence. Let them live with the regret of knowing they had the chance to believe in you, but chose instead to mock. That regret is their burden to carry, not yours. Because while they struggle with their own disbelief, you are already moving forward, stronger, wiser, and completely untouchable. Number 7, the power of being unshakable. They tried to bury you, not realizing you were a seed. Now they watch in fear as you grow beyond their reach. They threw everything at you. Doubt, mockery, rejection. They whispered behind your back, sneered at your ambition, and did everything in their power to make you second-guess yourself. They wanted you to flinch, to hesitate, to shrink into a version of yourself that was easier for them to control. But you never wavered. You took their insults and turned them into fuel. You faced every storm they sent your way and walked through it unbroken. You refused to let their words plant seeds of doubt in your mind. And now, that unshakable spirit is the very thing that makes them tremble. Because nothing terrifies weak people more than someone they couldn't break. They counted on you folding under pressure. They expected you to beg for their approval, to come crawling back after their rejection, desperate to be accepted. But instead, you stood tall, and every time they tried to push you down, you rose higher. Every attempt to silence you only made your voice louder. Every stone they threw at you became part of the foundation beneath your feet. Now, look at them. They don't mock you like they used to. They don't laugh as loud. They don't roll their eyes when you speak. Instead, they watch, they listen. They feel the shift in the air when you enter the room. Because you are no longer someone they can dismiss. You are someone they fear. They won't admit it, of course. They'll pretend they never doubted you. They'll act as if they always knew you would make it. But deep down, they remember. They remember the way they scoffed at you, the way they tried to crush your spirit, the way they underestimated your strength. And now, that realization haunts them, because you didn't just prove them wrong, you proved them irrelevant. You never needed their belief. You never needed their validation. You never needed them at all. And that's what burns them the most. They see it now, that there is nothing they can do to stop you. No insult, no rejection, no sabotage will ever shake you. You have become something untouchable, something beyond their reach. And so they do the only thing left. They fear you. Let them. Let them sit in the discomfort of knowing that they threw everything they had at you, and you still became unstoppable. Because in the end, you were never meant to break. You were meant to rise. Number 8. You saw what they couldn't. A blind man will call the sunrise a myth until the light burns through his closed eyelids. They thought you were lost. They shook their heads when you spoke, convinced that your vision was nothing more than fantasy. You're imagining things. That'll never happen. Be realistic. Every time you warned them, every time you tried to open their eyes, they laughed. They dismissed your words like the ramblings of a fool, never realizing that history had already proven them wrong before. Because this has happened before. The ones who see beyond the present are always mocked by those who refuse to look. The world called Galileo insane when he said the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. They laughed at the Wright brothers when they spoke of flying machines. They rejected Tesla's visions of free energy. And now, they search for ways to rewrite history, pretending they never doubted the ones who saw before them. You were never lost. You were never confused. You just saw before they did. And now, they have to sit in the wreckage of their own blindness. They have to watch as the very things they denied unfold before them, piece by piece, with terrifying precision. The prophecies you spoke, the warnings you gave, the truths you held onto despite their mockery, it's all happening. And for the first time, they don't have words. But let's be clear. Their blindness was never your burden. You were never meant to convince them. You were never here to beg them to see what was right in front of them. Because some people aren't blind by accident. They're blind by choice. They chose comfort over truth. They chose ignorance over awareness. They chose to laugh instead of listen. And now they have to live with those choices. They can pretend all they want. They can scramble for excuses, try to twist their past words, act like they always knew what was coming. But you remember. You remember their arrogance, their laughter, their absolute certainty that you were the one who didn't understand. And now, their certainty has turned into silence. But here's the best part. You don't even need to say, "I told you so," because reality is doing the talking for you. The truth you carried is no longer just a whisper in your mind. It is manifesting in front of their eyes. And the weight of that realization is heavier than any argument you could ever make. So let them sit in their regret. Let them wrestle with the knowledge that you were always right. Let them feel the weight of their blindness, not as your burden, but as their curse. You have already moved beyond them. Number 9. The silent pain of the doubters. The only thing more painful than being wrong is realizing you were wrong about someone who was right all along. They had their chance. You gave them every opportunity to listen, to see, to understand. But instead, they laughed. Instead, they rolled their eyes and turned their backs. They treated your vision like a joke, your ambition like an inconvenience, your truth like noise. And now that same truth they mocked is standing tall, undeniable, unstoppable, and it haunts them. Because here's what they don't want to admit. They knew deep down that there was something different about you. They felt it. They saw the fire in your eyes, the way you moved, the way you refused to be like them. And that terrified them, because if you were right, if you really did see what they couldn't, then it meant their entire way of thinking was a lie. So instead of opening their minds, they chose the easy path. They ridiculed you, dismissed you, convinced themselves you were just another fool chasing fantasies. But now, the weight of their own disbelief is suffocating them, because the impossible thing they swore would never happen has already happened. The same words they mocked are now echoing in their heads, over and over again. The same person they doubted is now untouchable, unreachable, beyond them. And regret. Regret is a slow, burning poison. Imagine realizing too late that the person you ridiculed was the one holding the truth, that the very person you mocked was the one carving the path forward while you stood still, that every warning you laughed at, every vision you doubted, every time you sneered and dismissed them, you were digging your own grave. That's what they're feeling now. And nothing eats away at the soul faster than knowing you doubted the right person. They stay silent now, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to face you. What could they possibly say? I was wrong. I should have listened. I mocked the only person who actually understood what was coming. Their pride won't allow them to speak those words, so they pretend. They avoid eye contact. They act as if they never doubted you, hoping you'll forget, hoping you'll be too focused on your own success to remember the way they treated you. But you do remember. And the best part, you don't even need their apology, because their silence is the loudest confession they'll ever make. Number 10. The future that belonged to you. They waited for the world to tell them they were ready. You decided you were ready before the world even knew your name. They sat still, waiting for permission, waiting for validation, waiting for someone, anyone, to tell them it was okay to chase what they truly wanted. They needed approval like oxygen, afraid to take a single step without the comforting nod of the crowd. And while they waited, you moved, you built, you created. And now, that's why you're ahead, while they are still stuck exactly where you left them. The truth is, they never really doubted you. They doubted themselves. They doubted their own ability to break free from the mold, so they projected that weakness onto you. You can't do that. That's impossible. Be realistic. But what they really meant was, I am too afraid to try, so I need you to fail too. That's why they clung to the sidelines, making excuses while you took action. They waited while you made it happen. And now they look at you in disbelief. How? How did you do it? How did you create a future that was supposed to be out of reach? The same people who once dismissed your vision now pretend they always saw it too. But they didn't. They were too busy asking for permission to see what you already knew. You were never meant to wait for approval. Look at the history makers, the empire builders, the ones who left the world changed. Did they ask for permission? Did Tesla, Da Vinci, or Jeff Bezos sit around waiting for the masses to nod in agreement before they pursued their ideas? No, they moved, they risked, they disrupted. And you are doing the same. But here's the part that stings them the most. You did it without them. You did it without their validation, without their support, without the approval they swore you needed. And that is what haunts them now. Not just that you succeeded, but that you succeeded without waiting for them to believe in you. Now they scramble. Now they try to rewrite history. I always knew you'd make it. I believed in you from the start. But you remember the doubt in their voices, the laughter in their eyes, the way they spoke about you when they thought you weren't listening. And now you owe them nothing. Because while they wasted years waiting to be chosen, you chose yourself. And that is why the future belongs to you. Number 11. They can't stand that you never needed them. They didn't just doubt you, they wanted you to depend on them. But the moment you walked away and built yourself without their help, that's when the real hate began. They thought you'd come back. They thought you'd beg for their validation, for their permission, for their approval. They wanted you to fail, not because they truly believed you were incapable, but because they needed you to need them. But you never did. You didn't wait for their acceptance. You didn't lower yourself just to fit into their version of success. You built, you moved, you created, you stepped forward, alone if necessary, refusing to play by their rules, refusing to shrink for their comfort. And now, the same ones who mocked you, who ignored you, who looked at you like you were nothing, they wish they had a piece of what you created. And that burns them more than anything, because they had a chance. They could have stood with you, they could have believed in you, they could have supported you when it mattered, but they didn't. Instead, they ridiculed, dismissed, and rejected you, thinking that without them you would crumble. But instead of crumbling, you rose. You rose without their help. You built an empire with your own hands. You found your own way, created your own destiny, carved out a space in this world where their opinions no longer mattered. And now, they watch from the sidelines, realizing that they played themselves. Because nothing stings more than seeing the person you doubted win, without ever looking back. And now, they're bitter. They make excuses. You just got lucky. You had advantages. If I had the same chances, I would have made it too. But you and I both know the truth. You made it because you refused to give up. You did what they were too afraid to do. You took the risks they avoided. You put in the work they were too lazy to commit to. They don't hate your success. They hate what it says about them, because you were once in the same place as them. You had the same options, the same struggles, the same world in front of you. But you made a different choice. You didn't settle. You didn't surrender. And now, they have to face the painful reality that they could have done it too. But they didn't. And that's why they resent you. Not because you made it, but because you proved they never even tried. So let them be bitter. Let them whisper. Let them pretend they always believed in you. It changes nothing. Because you never needed them. And now they can't stand the fact that you never will. Number 12. Their regret is not your problem. They had a choice, and they chose to doubt you. Now, their regret is the weight they must carry, not you. They had every opportunity to stand with you, to believe in you, to listen. But instead, they laughed. They sneered. They mocked you with the arrogance of those who believe they will never be proven wrong. They threw doubt in your face like a weapon, convinced that their disbelief was enough to bury you. But here you are, standing tall, unshaken, victorious. And now, their laughter has turned to silence. Their certainty has rotted into regret. The same people who mocked you now sit in uneasy contemplation, replaying every word they ever spoke against you, choking on the bitter truth that they bet against the wrong person. But let's get one thing straight. Their regret is not your problem. It is not your job to comfort them. It is not your responsibility to make them feel better about the fact that they doubted you. They made their choice, and now they must live with it. When you were struggling, did they lift you up? No. They laughed. When you were pushing forward, did they encourage you? No. They ridiculed you. When you warned them, when you tried to show them the truth, did they listen? No. They dismissed you, threw stones at your vision, made you feel like a fool for daring to dream bigger than them. And now, after all of that, do they deserve to stand beside you in your victory? Do they deserve to claim they always knew you had it in you? Absolutely not. Regret is a heavy burden, but it is theirs to carry, not yours. Let them wrestle with the realization that they had a front row seat to greatness and spent the entire time booing. Let them sit in silence, haunted by the knowledge that they could have supported you, that they could have walked beside you, but instead they tried to tear you down. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them kindness. You don't owe them a place in your journey. Because when they had the chance to believe in you, they chose to laugh instead. And now, as they watch you rise beyond their reach, they will feel the full weight of that mistake. That is the price of doubt. That is the price of arrogance. That is the price of choosing comfort over courage. You owe them nothing. Not your time, not your forgiveness, not even a second glance. Keep walking. Keep rising. Let their regret be their punishment. Let your success be your silence. And never, ever lower yourself to ease the pain of those who tried to break you. Number 13. The power they feared. First, they tried to break you. Then, they tried to silence you. Now, they can only fear you. They threw everything at you. They mocked. They doubted. They whispered behind your back, hoping their words would sink into your soul like poison. They tried to make you question yourself, tried to turn your own mind into your enemy. When that didn't work, they isolated you. They made you an outcast, thinking that if you stood alone, you would fall. But you didn't. You rose. And now, the only thing left in them is fear. Because nothing terrifies the weak more than the strength they failed to crush. They spent so much time laughing at you, but what they never realized was that every insult they threw was sharpening your edge. Every attempt to tear you down only made you more resilient. They thought their doubt would weigh you down, but instead it turned into the fire that forged you into something unstoppable. Now they look at you, and they don't see the person they once mocked. They see something they cannot define, cannot control, and cannot ignore. Their fear isn't just about what you've achieved. It's about what your existence represents. You are the proof that their excuses were lies, that they could have fought harder, that they could have broken free, that they could have done more with their lives. But they didn't. And now, every time they see you, they are forced to confront their own weakness. This is why they don't celebrate your success. This is why they don't congratulate you. Because deep down, they resent you for proving them wrong. They don't hate you for failing. They hate you for not failing. They wanted you to stay small, to be just like them, to fit into the same cage they built for themselves. But instead, you shattered every expectation, every limitation, every lie they ever believed in. And now? Now they are terrified of what you will do next. They know they can't stop you. They know they can't control you. They know that no matter what they do, you will keep rising. And that realization, it eats at them. It haunts them. It keeps them awake at night, replaying every time they doubted you, every time they tried to bring you down, every time they swore you would never make it. But here's the best part. You don't even care. You're too busy winning, too busy building, too busy proving to yourself, not to them, that you were always meant for more. Let them fear you. Let them tremble. Let them live in the shadows of their own regret. Because they couldn't break you. And now they can't stop you. Number 14. The unstoppable future. They tried to bury you, but they forgot you were a seed. Now you rise beyond their reach, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Their doubt was supposed to break you. Their laughter was supposed to silence you. Their endless attempts to make you question yourself were supposed to strip you of your power. But instead, they became the very fire that forged you. Every insult, every rejection, every eye that rolled when you spoke, all of it was fuel. And now you stand untouchable. They wanted you to fail, not just because they doubted you, but because your success exposes the truth they tried to run from. They swore you were wasting your time. They mocked your ambition. They told themselves that you were just another dreamer, another fool chasing something that could never be caught. But you didn't just chase it. You caught it. You built it. You became it. And now they don't know what to do. They see it. They feel it. The energy has shifted. You are no longer the one struggling to prove yourself. You are the proof. The very thing they swore could never happen is standing right in front of them, undeniable and unshakable. And here's the most brutal truth of all. You don't need them. You don't need their apologies. You don't need their validation. You don't even need their recognition, because their voices were never the measure of your destiny. You made it without them. You rose despite them. And that is why they fear you now, because you proved that their opinions, their doubts, their ridicule, they were never powerful enough to stop you. Look at them now. The same people who laughed at you are suddenly quiet. The same ones who told you it was impossible are now searching for explanations. They don't want to admit they were wrong, but they don't have to. Their silence is proof enough. And you are untouchable now. You shattered their illusions. You broke through every wall they swore you could never climb. And now you don't just walk in your power, you own it. So let them watch, let them whisper, let them try to rewrite history. It changes nothing. You have already won. And the most satisfying part, you never needed their belief. You only ever needed your own. And now, here we are. The mockery has faded. The doubts have collapsed. The very people who swore you would fail now sit in stunned silence, watching as you rise beyond their reach. But this was never about them. It was always about you. About proving to yourself that no obstacle, no ridicule, no force on this earth could stop you. You were always destined for more. If this message resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments to claim your power. Share this with others who need to hear it, because the more we rise, the harder it is to silence us.